This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Eve validates a plague of Egypt. I hope it's the frogs. And Team...
No.
What? Huh? What? I do?
I said me too.
And Tim and Deepak and Mehmet. Oh my. I'm your host, Brian Gregory. We got a light crew this week. But hey, it's going to be fun. Hi. Hi. If you're watching, I won't apologize. I'm sorry.
He's sorry for that, but he just won't do it.
I had to add that. Yes. Okay, so this is the Virtual Skeptics you're watching. You should probably know that by now. Let me introduce our minimal skeleton emergency-style crew this week.
Emergency virtual.
Yes. This is the crew we pull out. That's the ultra-reliable, the one crew that can handle everything skeptical in the planet. Well, maybe not in the planets, but on the planet, definitely. Let's see. First off, we have Eve. Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality. Tim Farley, Sheriff, past fellow blogger at SkepTools, Skepticality contributor, like we all are, except for me, I guess, and creator of What's the Harm. There we go. That's everybody. Everybody say hi.
Hi.
And our imaginary panelists.
And our imaginary panelists that we don't, I don't know. I'm not creative enough to come up with imaginary panelists right now.
Harvey.
Harvey. Yes. Harvey is always here, although he looks more like Frank to me. There you go. First obscure reference that only one person gets on the show this week. So, as we do every week, first up, we have a trivia question for all of the people on the social media extravaganzas. I guess I didn't tell you how you're supposed to respond, did I? Did I? Okay. So if you're on the Twitter, tweet #VirtualSkeptics. If you're on the YouTube, comment, and we will try to pay attention. If you're on the Google+, there's a Q&A app on the video stream where you can ask questions. That means they end with a question mark. Thank you. And then, trivia question. There you go. Tim, it's all you.
All right. This one... this one nobody's going to get. Because we just discovered it ourselves about 10 minutes ago. There's a name, you know, at the end of the show, we do this credit roll. Virtual Skeptics is an independent production, and we name a bunch of people and websites and stuff. One of those names has been wrong.
For 92 episodes.
Well, did we have the theme song at the very beginning, or?
I don't know if we did it for the first episode.
Yeah, it might not be 92, but 80-something, 90-something episodes. There's been a mistake in there. See if you can figure it out, and you can just go to one of the old... And actually, it's already in the blog post for tonight, so you can go down to the bottom of the blog post if you're reading it on the blog, or just, go to virtualskeptics.com and look at the bottom of one of the recent blog posts, and read that. There's a whole bunch of names. Which one is wrong?
I think you may have sort of given away what it was.
Oh.
But
did we?
All right.
I don't know.
Okay,
Maybe.
I'll stop talking.
Anyway.
On to the next thing.
Yes. So there you go. Really easy question. If you can click a link, you can probably figure it out. If not, I guess you don't get the pat on the back. The secondary question, as a reminder, is if you can figure out what the blotchy videos are behind me. I apologize. For some reason, my video is all dorked up this week. But if you are amazing with your eyes and can figure out what the obvious blotches are, I mean, they're fighting on this screen. I don't know what they're going on, something down on that screen. If you can figure those out, let me know, and I will also give you a kudos. So, and guess what?
What?
I get to go first this week. Yes, because I've been, there's been no robots for like 2 weeks. Because I was out 1 week, and then the internet, it's that chatbot. The chatbot took my internet down last week, so I couldn't. Chatbot. This week, I got a couple of interesting things. Let's see. First up, this may look familiar. I've talked about this probably a couple times on the show. This is a project this is a Harvard project. It was originally called Microbees. but they have changed. Well, it's a sub-project called the monolithic bee, or the MoBee. They have developed a neat little manufacturing technique to create these little tiny fly-like wings that can actuate, and they have figured out a control mechanism to allow it to fly like an insect. And this is the latest development. They've added a little sensor pack to the top, which is essentially it's kind of a neat little tiny gadget. It's a specially made circuit board with 4 light-sensitive diodes, phototransistors. So it's a very similar kind of vision that an insect would have. They can see lights and darks. And it just folds up and sits on the top of this thing. It's very lightweight. And they've used it to get stabilization information for the flight. So they can kind of get a feel for where, like the orientation. I'm not entirely sure how the algorithm works, but this has been a problem for them because the package is so small. You look there, it's compared to a quarter. That you can't really place the normal kind of sensors you'd put on a flying vehicle, like GPS or gyroscopes or accelerometers, laser rangefinders, which are usually these huge things, and they cost a lot of power, and other things about the sensors that don't work on an indoor environment. Unfortunately, they haven't. The kinds of problems they haven't solved yet are like the power problem and the onboard intelligence problem. If you look closely at this picture, there's a thin wire that comes off of the superimposed. That's actually a superimposed image of the flying, several frames of the flying robot. That wire goes off to a computer that actually is doing the controlling and provides the power. So it doesn't fly with its own intelligence, and it doesn't fly with its own power, which are 2 big problems that have to be solved. But I am waiting for the day when they can crank these things out and we can be swatting electronic flies in the summertime instead of the regular ones, and hopefully they don't bite.
Yeah, I was going to say they'd actually perhaps be preferable to the real ones.
Yeah, well, I'm not entirely sure. They may fly better. Maybe it'll be less annoying, but more deadly. I can think of all kinds of nasty applications for these, and not just surveillance. And I'm just that kind of guy.
Still kill them, though.
Yeah, the cat is true. These probably would be easily caught and eaten by cats, which, cats are probably our best defense against swarming robots. So there you go. All you cat haters out there, you are going to die first. I'm just saying. Okay,
no.
Next up.
Sorry.
Next up, this guy. Look at this guy. Is that a robot? I don't even know. It looks like a Photoshop to me. But supposedly, this thing is the Hitchbot, and it's Canadian, so it's nice. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if it's nice or not. But there's 2 doctors, Dr. David Harris Smith of McMaster University, and Dr. I hope I'm saying this right, Frauke Zeller of Ryerson University, have put together, among other kind of robotic art projects, the Hitchbot. And the idea is to have this Hitchbot, using its artificial intelligence and its ability to speak, convince people to give it rides across Canada. It is starting in Toronto. Let's see. It's starting in Toronto, and it wants to go through Halifax, Nova Scotia, to Victoria, and then to British Columbia. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what all the points are going to be. They probably will be determined by who gives it rides. But wow. I think that our best defense against the coming robot apocalypse is to make robots Canadian.
So they apologize to you before they
I don't.
destroy your...
I'm sure that I'm probably going to get beaten for saying that, but I don't know. Canadians are probably going to say, that's okay. We make nice robots. I don't know. I just thought that was cool. Unfortunately, that is the best picture I've seen of it. It doesn't look like a real picture to me. It looks like some kind of Photoshop.
It looks like a 3-legged stool in boots.
Yeah.
It looks like it looks like Tom Servo
Yeah.
Yeah.
like one of those fake robot puppets from.
If Tom Servo mated with a Muppet.
And for some reason, he's wearing kitchen gloves, which just scares me.
Yeah.
What is he going
And
to
they look
do with the gloves?
cartoony. Yeah, and this looks like, a picture they made up as part of their proposal.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, there's no pictures on the website. There is one blog entry. By the way, there's a blog where this bot is supposedly going to log its progress. I will put that in the show notes. I believe it's already in my notes. Yeah, there's already one entry that says it's sick of Toronto and wants to leave, essentially. So.
Yeah.
There's a lovely beach behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah? I wonder where the beach is.
When you said Hitchbot, I was expecting it to have a glass of scotch in it and make remarks about.
Yes, I don't know if. Yeah, I don't know if it drinks scotch, but I'm sure it must. Okay, and I got one more story. This is the latest thing from IKEA. Actually, no, IKEA is not going to sell these, as far as I know. This is a self-assembling robotic furniture.
Yeah, then IKEA's definitely not going to sell it because that would be too easy.
Yeah.
Do you think they understand those pictograms that they usually give so they can assemble themselves? I guess I don't really know how it's supposed to work. But this is similar to some of the other things that I've shown on the show, where they have pieces that are identical, that have some kind of movement, some kind of intelligence, some kind of communication, and they work together to do some kind of goal. Now, each one of those balls on the legs there is an individual unit that that can clamp onto the other ones in those round circles, and the two colored halves, you see the white and the dark half, can rotate as well. I've got a video of an example of a piece of furniture that is assembling itself. Actually, there you go. There you go. The legs are walking over, and this is obviously a simulation, not a real one. But the idea is that these things could work together to build a chair. There we go. Come on, chair, you can do it. There you go. A chair, and then it walks away. Look at that. So.
Escape chair.
Yep. And this is let's see. These are called room bots, and this project is done by.
I smell lawsuit.
No,
over the name.
Room bots, not
I
room
know.
buzz. Room
It's
bots.
so close, though.
That's true. They're not selling them yet. Let me see if I can say the name of this place. It's the Biorobotics Laboratory at École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne. Lausanne, like Lasange, but Lausanne, I guess.
Not just a coal.
Huh?
Never
Say
mind.
again?
It's a coal.
A coal. A
coal?
coal.
Maybe it's a coal. It's got a little thingy on the top. Thingy. Okay.
Yeah.
But they see their big picture is to have robotic furniture made out of this stuff that may follow people around. See here, they envision a chair that could follow a person, protecting them from falling and fainting.
Ah.
I'm not sure that the chair is going to want to do that long term. But I mean, they have a table that just has these things on the bottom, where they fold over and turn into wheels, so that the table kind of follows you around. I think that'd be kind of cool. I just don't think that they would be happy with that kind of employment for long term.
Seriously, they'll sneak up and trip you instead.
I suspect they would do all kinds of nefarious things. I don't know. So that's it. That's all I got. No, I take that back. I got one little tiny. Sorry, you're gonna interrupt about the other thing?
I was just watching it assembling itself, and I started wondering, could someone make a Rubik's Cube that could assemble itself? Because that would be so much easier.
I remember seeing a video of robots assembling or solving a Rubik's Cube very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this would be another approach. You'd actually have the Rubik's Cube solve itself.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure it would do it in some kind of harmful way.
Well, sure.
But that's just, the way I think, I guess. I actually do have one quick other thing. One of our regular watchers, interactors, the guy who did the, what was the name of the blog now?
The Journal of Special Pleading.
Yes, the Journal of Special Pleading blog. What did you say, Tim?
No, I was just repeating. Journal of Special Pleading. Yeah.
This is his Ring Bear bot, which when I first saw the post, I hoped it had something to do with bears, but unfortunately it does not. But it is a robot that is going to take the jobs of cute little children everywhere and
possibly after eating them.
Yes, possibly after eating them, and deliver rings. I think that Nathan built this, and did he? I wasn't sure from the post that whether this is something that he built and used or.
He definitely used it at his wedding.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
But it's very cool. Way to go, Nathan.
His Friday the 13th wedding.
I know. He's
Skeptics got married
wow.
Friday the 13th. I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very cool. So that is This Week in the Robot Apocalypse. Unfortunately, let's see, we got the...
Congratulations, Nathan.
Yes, congratulations, Nathan.
Congratulations. And Robot.
And robot. And I'm sure the robot had the most fun, although it didn't get to really do anything bad, so can't trust them.
I wonder if it can also do the chicken dance for the reception.
I'm sure that some human made it do the chicken dance, and it just hated us that much more.
Yeah.
So there. That's all I got. And I think who's next? Who's next?
Eve.
Tim?
Who's next? Tim? Eve? Tim? Tim's next.
Oh, is it me next? Oh,
yeah.
That's right. Eve's at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I am all about the Woomeisters this week. The big, exciting news, of course, yesterday was that Dr. Oz was brought up in front of Congress. And I was, it was kind of interesting last week when the press release went out from Claire McCaskill's office. She's a senator from Missouri. And she announced that, and if you follow these, it was clearly a follow-up to an FTC ruling that had happened a few weeks before. But she announced that she had called Dr. Oz to talk about weight loss scams. And if you remember, a few weeks ago, I tweeted it, and a lot of skeptics tweeted it, there was an FTC prosecution of several folks who were selling a green coffee bean weight loss product of some kind that was just totally bogus. But one of the common threads of their marketing of this product was that they would use Dr. Oz in their advertising. Now, Dr. Oz has complained on his own show, and if you go to his site, I think there's a segment where he gets on the web and Googles his own name and points out things that he has nothing to do with where they have his picture. So I'm sure he thought, or maybe they led him to believe, that that's what they wanted him to talk about. Now, the skeptics all went up in arms that how could you possibly ask Dr. Oz to testify about weight loss scams? He's responsible for them. And I at the time was like, well, I don't know what Claire McCaskill is thinking, but, she's a United States senator and a fairly well-respected one as far as I know. I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, but we did contact, I think various people contacted her office and da-da-da-da, and I think there's even some skeptic bloggers who are taking credit now for having turned her around. I think it's entirely possible she meant to grill them in the first place. They bring people up in front of Congress all the time to grill them. They've had the head of GM about these recalls and, the heads of the banks when the financial meltdown happened. It's a very common thing for folks to get called. So, I don't know. Who knows what it would have been beforehand. She did mention during her talking to him, she actually mentioned the term science-based medicine, which was very interesting because the usual term is evidence-based medicine, which means a slightly different thing.
Yeah.
Science-based medicine is the thing that's actually pushed by Steve Novella and the folks on the blog, it's unique to their blog, and there's a subtlety to it in terms of not just following where the evidential data takes you, but thinking about the scientific underpinnings behind it. Because if you just look at data
like that, yeah,
you can be misled. And as we've seen many times with acupuncture studies that seem to prove that acupuncture works, but there's no plausible mechanism for it to work. And if the studies aren't done carefully, anyway. So perhaps the skeptics convinced her. Who cares? The end result was he got grilled. The consensus was that he was uncomfortable and he was being grilled, and there were several great quotes from McCaskill talking to him. One was that she said, the scientific community... Oh, you can put one of my slides up. I've got Dr. Oz looking...
There's Dr. Oz with his pursed lips.
Courtesy C-SPAN. The scientific community is almost monolithically against you in terms of the efficacy of the 3 products you called miracles. I don't get why you need to say this stuff because you know it's not true. And he
admitted it was not true too.
Yeah, that was the other interesting thing, was he admitted that as a doctor he knows that losing weight is, it's not a simple thing. It's hard to lose weight. I know. I've been on a diet since last September. Maybe you've been paying attention. I've lost a lot of weight, and it's hard work. But on some level, it's a very fundamental thing. Get exercise and eat less food. Put less food in here. And if you balance that right and stick with it, you will eventually lose weight. And he said something to that effect, eat less crappy food, eat less food, and exercise more, and you will do better. And he said that himself, so he admitted his own nonsense. And she grilled him about how, just his stature lends credence to these things, and he may complain about people using his picture, but the fact is he lends credence to these things by talking about them.
Did he try to hide behind the abstractness of the term miracle?
I don't think he said, well, they're crutches.
Yeah. He basically said they were crutches, that it was just a way to get somebody to start on their diet and rely on the crutch, which of course is idiotic. And he looked very uncomfortable the whole time, and there's various clips out there. Yeah, if you Google Dr. Oz testifies for Congress, there's various clips, because C-SPAN is government TV, so it's not copyrighted, so everybody just copies it and sticks it on their website. So that was fun. I mean, there wasn't much more to say than, great, thank you, Claire McCaskill, and for grilling him. I wanted to talk about a different Woo Meister, which is our friend Deepak Chopra, who has been popping his head up recently a lot. I blogged about him twice, once back in December, I think, and once a few weeks ago. In December, I talked about foolishness he was pulling on Wikipedia. And last year, in the middle of the Rupert Sheldrake thing that I've talked about here before, where Rupert Sheldrake was up in arms about his own Wikipedia article, Chopra seemed to want to insert himself into the middle of that conversation. And he wrote an open letter to part of that conversation. Part of it started with a thing about TED, because Sheldrake had done a talk at TED that was just horrible. He claimed the speed of light. There's evidence that the speed of light is changing. He claimed, various other things that are just nonsense in the middle of this talk, and just demonstrably wrong facts, in addition to, out there pseudoscientific theories. And this was at a TEDx, which, if you don't follow the whole TED thing, TED is this super expensive conference that they've been doing since the 80s. You have to pay like $5,000 to attend. And very high-end speakers, and James Randi has spoken at TED, and da-da-da-da. And it got very popular, and they started sort of syndicating the concept. So they sort of have these local versions that are called TEDx, and they're not run by the same people. They just license the look and provide content essentially that goes up into the main website. And some of the TEDx's were starting to do kind of wooey stuff where they were getting acupuncturists and psychics and other weird stuff. And TED stands for technology, education, design. It's supposed to be the intersection between technology and the arts. It started in California and trying to get people thinking about cool ideas about the future and stuff. And the TEDx's had kind of lost their way, and this Rupert Sheldrake talk was one key one, and there were a couple of others last year that gained a lot of complaints. And the TED people eventually decided to remove the Sheldrake talk from their own site. Now, of course, it's still available.
Yeah.
It's, once you put a video out on the internet, it's out there, so there's copies of it all over the place. Well, of course, all these claims of censorship came up, and Deepak jumped right into the middle of it and wrote an open letter to TED with Rudy Tanzi and several others in HuffPo, and then TED replied and said, hey, look, we curate our own thing. We don't care if Sheldrake posts his thing elsewhere. But we're not going to have it on our homepage because we have a quality level, and that's not censorship. That's us deciding how we're going to curate our website.
Yeah.
Which is a perfectly reasonable answer, but of course, Chopra was not happy with that, and one of the ways he inserted himself in the middle of that, and I went back and found the HuffPo post, is he said, and I quote, I'm going to try to quote Chopra here to make sure I don't get what he says wrong. He says, his talk... he's talking about when he appeared at TED in 2002 on the same day that Richard Dawkins appeared. And Richard Dawkins' talk is one of the most popular TED Talks, or one of the top TED Talks, because it was one of his early, it was titled Militant Atheism, and I think it predated the publication of God Delusion, but obviously Dawkins was thinking about that. And talking about atheists getting out there and being public about it. And Chopra, Dawkins' talk was published on the TED site, but Chopra's wasn't. And Chopra added that into his open letter and said his talk appears in full at TED's website. Mine doesn't, nor can it be found with a Google search. I'd be grateful to see it restored as a gesture of TED's lack of censorship. Now, I didn't think too much of it at the time when I saw that, but the word restored is interesting because a few days later, TED actually posted the talk, and they posted it on Vimeo instead of their thing, but they posted it on their site, and if you Google Chopra's name on the site, you can find Chopra's 2002 talk. And the TED people said, we never posted Chopra's talk before. Because, frankly, it seemed unfocused. And it used the language of quantum physics in a way we thought was misleading. We admired Deepak's desire for a more spiritual connected world, but in our curatorial opinion, this particular talk was not right for the homepage of TED.com. So if you look at the wording there, Deepak says, restore my talk, and then TED says, well, we never posted it in the first place. And I was called attention to this. I never really had noticed all of this before, but I was called attention to it because Deepak's been posting some videos on his YouTube channel recently. He's gotten very into social media, and I wrote a whole post that I talked about here about how he's out of control on Twitter, and I guess now YouTube is his new channel. And he's doing these Ask Deepak, where he's getting on just like we do and talking to the camera. It's not a panel, it's just him talking.
Not as fun as Ask Tupac.
No, not at all. And a recent,
which is quite spiritual as well.
A recent one that he did is titled "My History and Relationship with Militant Atheists and Skeptics."
I'm sorry, I have to ask: has he been shopping at Elton John's garage sale?
I don't know.
I think that's an REI shirt or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's very odd. So here he is giving that video, and it goes on, and it's 31 minutes of him just talking. And no slides, no details, just him going on, and it's not just the history.
In a hotel room.
he goes off on various tangents about his latest book that he wants you to pre-order and da-da-da-da. But in this, I went through and I found some stuff that he says on here that's just not right. One of the things is he tells the whole story of, well, I mean, when he gets into the quantum stuff, you know, I'm not even going to go there, but just things that can factually be refuted. And at 3:51 in the talk, he tells the story that I just told about Dawkins' talk and how he spoke after that. And he said, so my talk was going to be on creativity, but I actually changed the subject and responded to his talk, which is a red flag because if you know anything about TED, now TED was a little different back in 2002. It's much more highly produced now. But if you've ever looked at, there's various stuff out on the net about how they do TED, and it is super researched, super rehearsed, and a lot of work goes into those talks. They hire graphic artists and have them work with the speakers, and you know, when people are paying $5,000 to sit in the audience, they don't want somebody going up there and winging it, right? So he admits in this chat that he changed the subject of his talk and winged it, which is, so it's no wonder the talk seemed unfocused, as is it Chris Anderson from TED said. Anyway, so he goes on and talk about how he called Dawkins a bigot and da-da-da-da, what he talked about. And then he says, and I left. Shortly after that, my talk disappeared from the TED website. Now, wait a minute.
Quantum.
No, but there's a fundamental problem here.
Was it an alternate timeline?
No. Here's the problem. This talk was in 2002.
Oh, did they have a website then?
TED did not have videos on their website in 2002. They started posting videos 4 years later. 4 years later in 2006, and in fact they only did it as an experiment in 2006. They only started doing it as a regular thing a year later in 2007, and now they post one like every week or whatever, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them there, and lots of other content. There's TEDx videos, and there's just tons and tons of stuff there. But in the early days, they did not post videos. So Deepak saying, my video disappeared, now obviously he's speaking off the cuff. It doesn't look like he's using a script. Maybe he remembered it wrong. Maybe he's remembering what happened to Sheldrake. But this is an example of how these stories get distorted. And Deepak claims this happened or that happened, or the militant skeptics, you know, he can't seem to say the word atheist without the word militant in front of it now. You know, so he's distorting the thing. Another thing he distorted in this same video is he started talking about his Twitter stuff that I blogged about, and he said that he had engaged with on Twitter, he's talked about how he was writing articles about the nature of fundamental reality and neuroscience and quantum physics and stuff like that. On Twitter, I usually link these articles to these atheists, and that's exactly what my blog post was, is that he blasts these links out and doesn't explain them. Yeah, he spams them because it's against the Twitter rules to just send you a link to your blog post over and over and over to different people. It's explicitly against the rules. But he can get away with it because he's a verified account with millions of followers. He says, I link these articles to the atheists, militant atheists, and skeptics, and they usually don't respond, so at least he was honest there. But once in a while, I think Sam has, and disagreed, meaning Sam Harris. And that's right, Sam Harris has responded to him about 10 or 12 times, I think. Once in a while, Dennett, meaning Daniel Dennett, once or twice has and disagreed. That is incorrect. Another incorrect statement. You can use Twitter search. You can go to the advanced search. You can say, from Daniel Dennett, mentions Deepak Chopra, never happened. Look at Daniel Dennett's feed. I talked about that in the other episode. He never responds to anyone because he uses Twitter as a broadcast medium, which many very famous people do. They don't have time for Twitter. Strangely enough, at the end of the talk, Deepak said something I agree with. Near the end, he said, "What's my position on skepticism in general? I think it's very healthy. Skepticism is the basis of science, but not angry, strident skepticism, not militant cynicism, and not cynical mistrust, which I think closes our mind." Now, I can agree with that.
Yes.
That's probably the only thing Deepak Chopra's ever said.
But that doesn't apply. It only applies to other people.
Well, of course.
So.
But I do not recommend watching these videos. He has another one where someone sent him a link to the Amazing Meetings website, and he did a whole video. It's only 7 minutes, but it's called The Amazing Meeting or The Not So Amazing Meeting, and it's front to back ad hominem attacks. Now, he on his Twitter is constantly saying, "Oh, Sam, you're going ad hominem there on me." And his co-author is always accusing people of ad hominem attacks. And Deepak is ad hominem attacking people. He called Michael Shermer small fry in this video. And, obviously, and I said this in my post about how he behaves on Twitter, that it verges on trolling. He's trolling us. He is absolutely trolling us. And I just fell for it.
But at least he has, like, the emotional maturity of a 12-year-old.
It is.
Yeah,
it's very concerning that someone with his level of, obviously he's a millionaire and is the head of a foundation, has published, many, many books, I think 80 books. And
they must be good.
And he
published that many.
Yeah, well.
And it seems hard to tell how much is, I don't know, lack of interest in being accurate.
Yeah. And you wonder, and it always makes me wonder when someone at that level of experience acts so childishly and makes such obvious mistakes. You kind of wonder, are they doing it deliberately? Is it deliberate just so that I would spend my whole segment talking about him like I just did?
Viral marketing.
And exactly, the old saying about there's no such thing as bad publicity. So even if people are calling Deepak Chopra names, at least they were saying Deepak Chopra. So maybe that's his strategy. I don't know, but
maybe he was able to write all those books by using the Wisdom of Deepak Chopra website, which is a random generator of crap that he comes up with.
That sounds
save him a lot of time.
Yeah.
It sounds. A couple of the traffic on Twitter tonight is very good, and I always enjoy Dr. Atlantis. If you don't follow Dr. Atlantis, follow Dr. Atlantis, and Mrs. Dr. Atlantis as well are both very, very good tweeters. A couple of quick ones. Alpha Ralph was a regular watcher. Said, actually he was retweeting Dr. Atlantis tweet. The Hitchbot will end up on a meth-infused road trip with Rob Ford, which I thought was quite funny. Another one, the robot table is okay, but I've seen cinder blocks and 2x4s self-organized into an entire dorm room, which I like that one as well. Let's see. Apparently I'm doing all Blake Smith tonight. Disappointed. Ted was afraid to repost my talk or fly me out to talk or invite me to talk in the first place, which was very
they've
relevant.
never invited me either.
I don't know what's up with
censorship.
Okay, and unfortunately, there's someone keeps posting questions on Google+. Christian Escobar, I believe, is the name, and I really apologize. It seems like you are not an English speaker, and I'm having a hard time understanding your questions. So I'm not going to be much help with responding. Sorry. Up next, Eve. Eve is going to talk about the plague of frogs.
Yeah, sadly, it's not actually the plague of frogs. It's
mad cow disease.
No, it's a plague of Egypt.
Oh,
locusts? But not one of the biblical plagues. More of a post-biblical plague. but still very nasty.
Okay.
It's the plague of Cyprian, named for Saint Cyprian, Bishop of Carthage, an early church father who described the plague. Excuse me.
Are you dying from plague? Stop it.
It ravaged the Roman Empire for years, starting around 250 CE. Again, it's not the plague. That is to say, it's not caused by Y. pestis bacterium. But at its height, this plague supposedly killed 5,000 people a day just in Rome. Now, that's undoubtedly an exaggeration. Sometimes large numbers are used simply to mean a lot when it comes to descriptions of epidemics, but it really was a lot. And now archaeologists have uncovered evidence of the plague at an ancient temple in Luxor, Egypt. An Italian team led by Francesco Tiradritti found bodies covered with lime, 3 lime kilns, and there's a slide of one of the kilns, and a giant bonfire that contained human remains, and we have a slide of that as well. And based on the pottery discovered, the remains were dated to the 3rd century CE, which is the time of the plague. So, almost certainly, they are plague victims. The remains were found at a monument that was originally built for a grand steward named Harwa in the 7th century BCE. And for centuries, the monument continued to be used for burial, but after it was used to incinerate and dispose of plague victims, it was abandoned. According to Tiradritti, the use of the complex for the disposal of infected corpses gave the monument a lasting bad reputation and doomed it to centuries of oblivion until tomb robbers entered the complex in the early 19th century. So yay, tomb robber! Well,
yay! What?
Yeah. Sometimes they do useful things, or find things anyway. Shame about the robbing part. Anyway, Tiradritti's team found no evidence of any religious rituals that had been performed for the dead. They were disposed of and neutralized as quickly as possible. So the find underscores just how devastating this plague was. St. Cyprian thought it was the end of the world. He actually seemed pretty enthusiastic about that idea, though. With the end of the world, it's kind of like the people on Rapture Ready. Yay, the end of the world's coming. Kingdom of God, woohoo. Of course, he was wrong. It's one of many predictions of the end of the world that so far have all been wrong. But 2 emperors did die, and according to Tiradritti, the plague weakened the empire and may have hastened its ultimate fall. So in a way, it was the end of the world as they knew it, which should really be a song. Cyprian described...
band.
Yes. Cyprian described the epidemic in De Mortalitate. He says, "This trial, that now the bowels, relaxed into a constant flux, discharge the bodily strength, that a fire originated in the marrow ferments into wounds of the fauces," which is the mouth area, that the intestines are shaken with a continual vomiting, that the eyes are on fire with the injected blood, that in
Do
some
they shoot
cases,
lasers out of their eyes too?
No, sadly, I don't think so. That in some cases,
awesome.
Wait, this part is good.
Okay.
That in some cases the feet or some parts of the limbs are taken off by the contagion of diseased putrefaction. That from the weakness arising, that from the weakness arising by the maiming and loss of the body, either the gait is enfeebled, or their hearing is obstructed, or the sight darkened. Though again, he actually was, pretty cheerful about it, because it was a sign of Well, it was an opportunity for Christians to show that they were better than everyone. So he goes on to say, it is profitable as proof of faith. What a grandeur of spirit it is to struggle with all the powers of an unshaken mind against so many onsets of devastation and death. What sublimity to stand erect amid the desolation of the human race, and not to lie prostrate with those who have no hope in God, but rather to rejoice and to embrace the benefit of the occasion, that in thus bravely showing forth our faith, and by suffering endured, going forward to Christ by the narrow way that Christ trod, we may receive the reward of his life and faith according to his own judgment. Blech. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people tend to be apparently pompous gits.
Was he Catholic? Oh. Never mind.
Well, it's before there was really this thing. Okay. At any rate, people's reactions to epidemics and natural disaster are kind of predictable. People fear, there's grieving, a desire to find the cause, and to try to find a way to stop the disaster. Sometimes the attempt to find a cause shades into finding someone to blame. And this still happens, but was even more true when the chances of finding the true cause were as good as the chances of seeing a microbe without a microscope. So during the Black Death, for instance, Jews were scapegoated, lepers also. During the plague of Cyprian, some people blamed Christians, which is a comparatively new sect, and this may have actually increased persecution. Others put it down to an act of God or gods, depending on which gods you.
Well, it is Egypt, so yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, Egypt, all over the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Christianity actually did, in some ways, benefit from the plague in that they gained followers, partly because of the promise of an idealized afterlife, but also partly because Christians were seen to tend to the sick and dying. As I said, the plague of Cyprian seems not to have been bubonic, pneumonic, or septicemic plague, which is caused by the Yersinia pestis bacterium, and can now be treated with antibiotics. It seems instead to have been a virus, probably either smallpox or measles, or possibly an ancestor of measles. Now, in the Western world, we don't see massive, devastating epidemics like the Black Death or the plague of Cyprian so much anymore. We have better pest control, better hygiene, public health initiatives, and antibiotics cut down on plague cases. And vaccinations have massively reduced measles and smallpox epidemics. In fact, smallpox has largely been eradicated, and measles was supposed to be eradicated, but like its friends mumps and pertussis, it's actually making something of a comeback. And why? Yeah. Because of anti-vaccination idiots like Andrew Wakefield, Jenny McCarthy, and Meryl Dorey. They bibble about autism and toxins and overloading the immune system and blah, 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 blah. And this is because they were never vaccinated against inane bullshittery when they were children. Obviously, there can be bad reactions. I
didn't realize there was a vaccine for that.
Yep, and they didn't get it. So there can be bad reactions to vaccines, just like any other medicine or any other chemical, including natural ones. The smallpox vaccine in particular carried some risks, but serious reactions are still quite rare, and the vaccine is still so much better than smallpox. Smallpox really, really sucks. It's horrible. Very, very nasty, unpleasant. It's deadly. It really just dreadful. And guess what? Measles and chickenpox also suck. I know many adults today had chickenpox or even measles when they were children, and it never did them no harm. But these viruses are not or do not have to be rites of passage anymore.
Yeah.
Instead, they're loaded guns with the safety off in the playpen. Many people, admittedly, are just miserable for a while, and then they get better, possibly with some minimal scarring. The majority of people don't die from them. But a significant number of people do die from vaccine-preventable viruses.
Especially young children, yeah.
Yeah, especially in the case of pertussis,
Yeah.
which mostly affects or is worse for babies who aren't old enough to be vaccinated. And you know what's better than dying from a virus? Not dying from a virus.
Yes.
In fact, given the choice, not being miserable for 2 weeks is preferable to being miserable for 2 weeks.
That's true.
So, if you hear people dribbling on about toxins and autism and blah, 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 inane bullshittery, remember the plague of Cyprian. Remember the vomiting and the gangrene and feet falling off. Think of the blindness and the deafness of survivors. Think of the fear and panic that led people to incinerate their loved ones or cover them with lime without any of the usual ceremonies or shows of respect. And remember, vaccines are better than plagues.
Definitely. Now, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Does the plague of, is it Cyprian?
Cyprian, yeah.
Cyprian, is it treatable with Cipro?
No, because that would only work for bacteria.
Oh, okay, so it's okay. Okay, so no Cipro for Cyprian, which is clever enough. Thank you. Alrighty then. Let's see. Do we get any questions?
We're asking about your screens.
Yeah, there's someone is working on the screen question. But other than that, still no answers to the trivia question yet, I guess. Did anybody?
Oh, no, there were answers.
There were answers. I think people came about as close as I expected them to come.
Okay. You want to see? You want to do that now? Do the trivia question.
Sure. Yeah. I asked what name in our final credit roll has been wrong every time we said it, and Dr. Atlantis was the first to get into the neighborhood. He said, well, it's something to do with the theme song, and that's right. And
to be fair, that was because you mentioned the theme song.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, did I? Did I say that?
Was I?
I'm not sure.
Well,
yeah.
when someone said going back to the first
it might
show,
have been me.
well, I don't know if.
Yeah, that was me.
The theme song.
I let the cat out of the bag.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was dumb of me. Well, anyway, it was fairly obvious if you went through the names in the list because they were all.
All you had to do is compare the last two blog entries.
Doubtful News. What's the harm? Blah blah blah. Yeah, it's Tremor. The music by Tremor is used with permission. It turns out Tremor is the name of the song.
Not the band. The band is actually a band called Musicant that provides music to the site where we purchased the license for that stuff. So there you go. Sorry, Musicant. We will now give you 90 more episodes with credits just to make up for the 90 we did not give you the proper credit.
Yeah, maybe if we feel nice, we'll go back and fix a few. Or maybe not.
You're going to make me dub that or something?
No, just in the blog post.
Okay. The secondary quiz-like thing that we do every week is the mystery videos behind me. And Alex Murdoch did get one of them correct. He said, yes, the left computer was showing Ultraman, and yes, it's the Ultraman trailer for the show, repeating over and over and over again. I used to watch that like crazy when I was much smaller than I am now. The other one, I think it's too blocky to see, really. It is actually the trailer for the original Japanese version of Gojira. And actually, that's a very
Raymond Burr.
No, this is the version before they edited it for American audiences. So there you go. And no, you can't answer after I've given the answer. Maybe he put that before. I don't know. Maybe I'll give him partial credit. How about that? So there you go. Thanks. Congratulations, Alex and Blake, for the answers. Good job. Clap, clap, clap. Now, book time. Book time. You guys got books? You guys ready? Are there any announcements tonight? I didn't see any announcements. Is there anything going on? It's summertime. There's nothing going on.
Not really. I think they're same old stuff.
Yep, same old stuff. So there you go. That's our announcements. Same old stuff. Eve, why don't you do your book first?
Okay. From Kaffa to Vietnam and Afghanistan, no human activity has been more closely associated with plague than war, and few centuries have been as violent as the 14th. In the decades before the plague, the Scots were killing the English the French the Flemings, and the Italians and the Spanish each other. More to the point, in those savage decades, the nature of battle changed in fundamental ways. Armies grew larger, battles bloodier, civilians were attacked more frequently, and property was destroyed more routinely. And each change helped make the medieval battlefield and the medieval soldier more efficient agents of disease.
Okay. Thank you for another plague reference. Tim, go.
Rita and Doug Swan were Christian scientists who firmly believed that disease was an illusion, and that the most dangerous thing that they could do was to show lack of faith in God by relying on medical treatment. One wonders just how strong their belief was, since when an ovarian cyst caused intractable pain, Rita had surgery to remove it. When their baby Matthew developed a fever, they paid a Christian Science practitioner to come to their home and pray over him. She told them fever was just fear, and indeed Matthew recovered.
And that they didn't know that she secretly slipped them kid Tylenol when they weren't looking.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm just saying. That kind of stuff really pisses me off. Okay. If you think your personal computer is giving you a hard time, you should check out Demon Seed and see what real computer trouble is. Alex Harris is the creator of Proteus 4, a computer so advanced that it will make obsolete many of the functions of the human brain. This computer is pretty hot stuff and can do almost anything. For example, one of its first projects is to find a cure for leukemia, the disease that killed Harris's daughter at age 4, and solves the problem virtually overnight. What makes the computer so super is that, as Alex explains, its insides are not electronic, they're organic. Proteus 4 can even talk with a distinctive voice of Robert Vaughn. Okay, wow. I'm not going to go any further. Some of you guys out there might know that movie.
Robert Vaughn cameo appearance.
Yes. Eve, what's your book?
The Great Mortality by John Kelly.
John Kelly. Okay.
Pretty picture.
It is, yes.
Woman kissing skull.
Tim.
I cheated again. It's not really a book. It's a magazine. It's the latest issue of Skeptical Inquirer, which just came in the mail, at least
Shameless
for me,
plug. Shameless
yesterday. And that was Harriet Hall's article about faith healing. And Rita and Doug Swan, bad things happened to Matthew later, and Rita and Doug Swan became advocates, or Rita Swan became advocates for kids who have gotten clobbered by faith healing. And actually her website became a big data source for What's the Harm in the early days. Awesome. And of course, my usual Skeptical Anniversaries is on the back page with the comics, so you can find out some skeptic history.
Very cool. Let's see. My book is Cult Science Fiction Films by Welsh Everman. Let me give you a picture here. It's got one of those awesome old sci-fi pictures on the front. It is a wonderful catalog of wonderful old B movies and a few movies that aren't so B, that are just wonderfully cult movies. I love it. Found it in a used bookstore in Baltimore. I love used bookstores. Go check out used bookstores. You can find all kinds of neat old stuff. I'm just saying. So there you go. There you go. Is that the show? Are we done?
I think so. And on time.
Wow.
Holy mackerel.
Holy mackerel. Any more questions? I didn't see any questions in the Twitter, no questions in the plus, on the YouTube, on the chats. Okay, thank you everyone for watching. I'm going to put on the music. Listen carefully. Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of whatstheharm.net, Skeptical Humanities, myself, and Doubtful News. Our logo is designed by Sarah Mayu at sarahmayu.com. Our theme music is by MusicCat and used with permission. Thanks for watching.